Good afternoon. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. Last week we talked about the importance and the necessity of not joining with institutionalized mutual definitions, mutual agreements, mutual concepts, because that's the only way the pattern of the habit of misperception can be effectively broken. And it requires definite self-discipline. It requires conscious attentiveness to what? To what you're thinking, to what you're choosing to occupy your mind with. You know, there's a commandment that says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." And ordinarily you think that means don't tell lies about your brother. Don't misrepresent your brother. Don't tell others that he's done something that he hasn't done, or that he's thought something he hasn't thought. But, you know, there's a more significant means of bearing false witness that actually has more impact. It's what you're thinking about your brother or your sister. I've talked before about the fact that there are two ways to utilize the sense of sight. You use vision for one of two reasons: to gather information or to give acknowledgement. When you use your vision to gather information, you can count on it. You're in an independent, self-protective mode. You are assessing the situation to find out whether you're safe, and to decide how to handle yourself depending upon the circumstances. When you look at your brother, you look to either gather information about him or her, or to acknowledge something, to give something. You notice that he or she's cranky or unfriendly today or whatever it might be, and you assess the situation. I'd better watch myself with this person. And you have added to your current definition of that person. In that process, you've never checked with God to find out what's true about that individual. You've worked entirely in the ego realm, you might say. And so your assessment and the added definition that you've given to yesterday's definition of that one is a misrepresentation. It is a bearing of false witness. Your behavior then will be governed by the assessment you have made. You will embody or share your assessment. An assessment that is incapable of being part of a healing, wholizing, clarifying encounter. Now, all of you can see that intellectually, and basically all of you know when you're being unkind, when you're thinking unkind thoughts. But since you think it's private, there's no call for you to change. It's not hurting you. But the point is that whatever gift you make is the gift that becomes yours. And if it's an act of lovelessness, lovelessness becomes your experience. If you are bearing false witness against your neighbor, you're bearing false witness against yourself, and you are keeping yourself from the experience of your joy, of the fact that your presence is itself truly the presence of love, and you cannot stand in receipt of the real purpose for your having an encounter with anyone else. Which is to find and experience your unity in the context of what the two of you divinely are. Is that really the experience you all want? No. But you have to look at it squarely and then dare to treat it honestly so that you can become grounded in what counts, so that you can become grounded in what gives impetus to transformation. Now, there's another aspect of bearing false witness that is especially important if someone else that you're encountering is ill. And that is that when you assess their health and you come to the conclusion that they look terrible, that you had better steer clear of them because you don't want to catch what they have. You notice that their skin is sallow and that they're perspiring and their hair is a mess and they should have stayed home in bed. And you add this, as I said, to your definition of them. You modify their definition to a worse status than it was yesterday. You are, in effect, embodying the voice of the other teacher. And you are making it more difficult for healing to occur. And you are making it impossible for you to be a part of healing. It is very important not to rehearse, in other words, to repetitively mull over or speak the appearance of illness or the processes of disease. I'm sure every one of you at one time or another has gotten together at a family gathering where someone is describing their last illness or their last operation and goes through all of the details of it. Every time you give your attention to the details of the misperception of a child of God, a divine idea, the Father expressed, you incarcerate yourself more firmly in what I referred to last week as the institutionalized mutual agreements about health, health care, and we'll say health problems and what their impact is. And you densify the human condition, so to speak, thereby. You are not making it easier for anyone to wake up. And you are acting at odds with the very thing you are professing to love and to be interested in by virtue of your studying the course or the Bible or any religious or spiritual teaching aimed at, quote, overcoming the human condition, unquote. You know, if you run into someone who has been through a health trauma, we'll say, and they start to tell you all the gory details of their encounter with it, you can and should interrupt them and say, you know what? I really don't want to hear all the details because whatever you tell me is drawing a picture, painting a picture in my mind of you in an unhealthy state. And because I don't want that to occupy my time, I am going to have to take time, because I don't want that to occupy my mind, I'm going to have to take the time to reintroduce the awareness of the truth about you. I'm going to have to clear my mind of those images so that when I think of you, I am sending forth thoughts and meanings that embrace you in health. So that I'm not burdened by a sad and awful picture of you, but might have in my mind a spontaneous capacity to acknowledge you and embrace you in the perfection that God made you with. Now, you don't have to use the words God and so on, but you can convey the idea that you believe that your thoughts about them have impact on them, and that therefore the thoughts you want to have in your mind, you want to be as close to the perfection of them as they can be. You don't tell them this, but you let this be the basis for your encounter, or for the basis for the remark I'm going to make. You don't have time to be distracted from your clear perception of them as what they divinely are. Because anything other than that will only compound the problem, lengthen its disturbing energy in their experience, and deprive you of the peace and joy of your clarity, because you're staying in alignment with the truth about them, the Father's being of them, right there and then, when they think something else is true about them. Now, this may sound like I'm saying that by your clear, correct thoughts, you can make change happen. No. But the closer your thinking is to the truth about them, the more parallel your mind comes to the mind of God. The less blocked you are to the flash of insight when the Father takes the other step and reveals to you as an influx of insight the truth with a capital T about them that will be healing. Watch your thoughts, because they bind you and they bind others. And then if you're going to think, let the thoughts be as close to the truth as you are aware of the truth as they can be. And they will deny the evidence of illness. They will deny your friend's perception of himself or herself. And that's okay. You're not there to agree with their ego's perceptions of themselves. And it will bring your thought into close enough alignment so that the little gap can be crossed, bridged, and you can have an aha experience, a direct knowing of the truth as supplied to you by the Father. An influx of you in your right mind, you might say, that will be an agent for change and will lessen the density of the dream of the human condition. Watch yourself and stop yourself when you find yourself rehearsing misperceptions. You make the gift of a misperception, and you get the gift of misperception, and you've increased the misperception. And just like any grapevine works, your misperception will get passed on, and it will become the misperception of the one who passed it on, and the one they passed it on to stands in receipt of something that they've either got to challenge or they will embrace and pass on as well. So be alert. As we've been saying, you're teaching all the time. And your teaching has far-reaching effects. And even if you don't repeat in words what you would teach if you did speak, the teaching you are embracing will govern your attitude, thoughts, and actions. And you will not behave in the way an agent for change would behave. and thus you will reinforce the status quo. Okay, let's go into the book. The goal of the curriculum regardless of the teacher you choose, is know thyself. Now, mind you, when you read the word curriculum here, you generally think it means the curriculum of the course, the curriculum that's set forth in printed words on pages in a book. But remember, the course is the retracing of the steps you took away from home. It's the undoing of the very specific addition of misperceptions upon misperceptions that got you further into the dark about your birthright. So the curriculum was established by you, by each step you took away from home, each step you took into ignorance, each step you took into ignoring the truth more and more. The goal of the curriculum, regardless of the teacher you choose, is know thyself. There is nothing else to learn. You could say that waking up is remembering who you are. And you remember who you are only by remembering who your father is. Because as long as you are fatherless, you are without a clear experience of real identity. Continuing, everyone is looking for himself and for the power and glory he thinks he has lost. Whenever you are with anyone, you have another opportunity to find them, as opposed to the definition you've created about them. Whenever you are with anyone, you have another opportunity to find them. Your power and glory are in him because they are yours. You see, they can't have something you don't have. And you can't have something they don't have. Remember, we said last week that we is characteristic. Of abandoning the right you think you have to express free will independent of anyone or anything else. And so throughout the Course, you find statements like this: your power and glory are in him because they are yours. It's a reminder that the eternal constant of being is we. Equality. Inseparable wholeness in union. So, your power and glory are in him because they are yours. The ego tries to find them in yourself because it does not know where to look. The Holy Spirit, the other teacher, teaches you that if you look only at yourself, you cannot find yourself because that is not what you are. Interesting? It didn't say that is not where you are. It says that is not what you are. What does that mean? Well, it means you aren't a body. It means you aren't a localized speck of life. What you are is mind, the conscious experience of being, including and inseparable from everything you are conscious of. This means that everything you are conscious of is also the conscious experience of being, in which is embraced all there is to be conscious of, which includes you. Which means that everything shares wholly and equally, because all is mind. All is one thing, the infinite conscious experience of being. Continuing, whenever you are with a brother, you are learning what you are because you are teaching what you are. He will respond either with pain or with joy, depending on which teacher you are following. And depending upon which teacher you are following, you will either be bearing false witness, or you will be bearing witness to the truth about them and yourself. Continuing, he, your brother, will be imprisoned or released according to your decision, and so will you. Never forget your responsibility to him, because it is your responsibility to yourself. You don't really believe this. But I promise you that if you will take this as your practice for the coming week, to remember that what you are giving, you are getting. What you share, you get to keep. And you take responsibility for which teacher you're going to look at your brother with and choose for the Holy Spirit. You're going to be able to report back to me next week, even though I will not ask you to. Quite a transformation in you and in your experience with your brothers, because it's the truth. Again, never forget your responsibility to him, because it is your responsibility to yourself. Give him his place in the kingdom, and you will have yours. On the other hand, if you give him his place in the human condition, you will give yourself your place in the human condition. And I ask again, is that what you want? Now here's the key. The kingdom cannot be found alone. And you who are the kingdom cannot find yourselves alone.